Hello, and welcome to It Matters How We Treat One Another, the social psychology podcast. This podcast is based on It Matters How We Treat One Another on Facebook and Instagram, presently with over 40,000 followers and growing. This show is planned to be available both as a podcast, everywhere that podcasts are available, whatever your favorite podcasting platform is, and as a YouTube show in both video and audio. I am your host, Matthew David Vasco. Whenever I'm tuning into a new podcast, I always like to hear why this host, why is this person taking on this topic? For me, first of all, social psychology is a passion of mine. It's something that I've always been interested in and studied up on. And I have a degree in communications and psychology. So, kind of like how guys like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye are science communicators, I am a psychology communicator. And I'm also a credentialed religious educator, advanced level, in the Unitarian Universalist denomination. If you're not familiar with Unitarian Universalism, we are accepting of all faiths and no faith. And we believe in science. We actually hold science as one of our sources of inspiration. So hopefully all of those things qualify me to be the guy who hosts this new show. And I just thought I would start off the first episode by talking a little bit about what the show's format is going to be like. First of all, I plan to open each week with inspiring news. Things that are happening in the world that might inspire you to be excellent to others. If you saw any of my previous podcast or listened to any of that previous podcast, the Feel Good Show, I opened every segment with feel good news. And so this is something similar to that, something I'm bringing over from the old show that I really liked, that I thought also fit this format. And I'm hoping that you, the listeners, will become the source for our news segment, that you might all have some inspiring news happening either in your life or in your community that you would want to share. You're welcome to send us your inspirations at mdvasco@gmail.com. That's M as in Matthew, D as in David, VASKO @gmail.com. And I will share those here on the podcast. You can also put them in the comments on YouTube. And, I want to hear all those great things that are going on, things that people are doing for one another, ways people are helping each other out, and just all those ways that people are generally being awesome to each other. After this initial introductory episode, each future episode, I plan to have an interview with someone maybe in the psychology world, maybe out there making a difference in the world. For example, my first guest scheduled for later this month is Dr. Zenaida Stewart Robles. She is a choral singer, a composer, and a director of music. And we're going to be taking a look at how choral singing and group singing creates community and connection. So you'll want to tune back in for that. I'd also like to, on this first topic that I plan to cover, I'd also like to interview someone doing volunteerism for community and connection, sort of doing good for others as a way to help yourself. So maybe someone from a nonprofit, something like that, someone who's active in their own community, that remains to be seen. A surprise guest coming up in the future, so stay tuned. And our first topic that we're going to cover in that interview with Dr. Zenaida Robles, um, and later on with someone in volunteerism, is the topic of, and this is kind of a heavy topic. I think it's kind of maybe a bit of a important place to start. The topic of despair. There is evidence to support that we have an epidemic of despair here in the United States. I am based out of the United States in Los Angeles, California, and that's where my Facebook and Instagram platforms are based out of as well. And there just really seems to be an epidemic of despair here in the US. For example, they estimate that approximately 150,000 people die from despair each year here in the United States. That is according to a 2019 article from the New York Times. They cited some evidence and research from 2017 in that article. So it's a few years old, but I honestly, we have evidence to support that the COVID epidemic only worsened the despair epidemic here in the United States. So we're going to be talking a little bit about death, what's called death of despair, or you might call it death from despair. Basically, this is anyone who dies from suicide, drug overdose, or alcoholic liver disease, all of which are considered preventable deaths. And death of despair is something that has sort of hit the news media recently within probably the last 7 to 10 years here. And it's taking all of those categories of preventable death where people might have made a change in their lives or chosen a different path, and lived. And so yes, 150,000 of those deaths a year here in the United States. Organizations like the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention are working very hard to try to bring those numbers down. And hopefully, maybe podcasts like this one can help to make a difference as well, because we're going to be looking at antidotes to despair, things that you can do in your own life if you are depressed or feeling despair symptoms, to try to improve your situation, improve your state of being. And of course, we're going to take this topic very seriously. But it is well documented that community and connection can help to combat despair. And so that's where we're starting off, at community and connection. Each episode of the podcast after the interview will feature what I call the takeaway, which is just a few kernels to take back to your daily life. Today, for example, I think maybe a good takeaway for this episode would be that community and connection are remedies to despair. You also might keep the ideas of purpose and meaning in mind for ways to lift your mood and give your life, if you, for example, are able to find a greater purpose in your life, that can help to add more meaning to your life. And we'll be talking more about that in upcoming episodes as well. And every episode will end with a quote. The quote for this week is from Viktor Frankl, and the quote is, "Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how." Very powerful words, I believe. I will repeat that, actually. Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how. And so we will always end with a quote of some kind. There's your quote for this week, the highly quotable Viktor Frankl, who you may know from his book, Man's Search for Meaning, which is actually one of my favorite books. Not here on my bookshelf behind me, but probably one I should add, because one that I refer to often. And each episode, I will sign off with a message that carries over from Facebook and Instagram, which are a couple of phrases that I repeat on there once in a while, and seem to really resonate with people. And also, sort of values that I base a lot of the different posts on. And it goes like this. Remember, treat everyone with kindness, respect, empathy, and compassion, and try for acceptance and love whenever possible, and be well. And I'm going to actually take a little bit of time in this first episode to break that quote down for you. I guess it's a quote. I'm quoting myself. I don't know. It's something that I say often on those platforms. And breaking it down goes kind of like this. Start with kindness. Kindness doesn't ask much of us. Simply the act of being sort of a generosity of spirit, being caring for others. And kindness costs us, next to nothing, right? Doesn't cost anything to be kind. Next, we have respect. I always promote the idea of universal basic respect. I have a basic respect for all people, respect people's right to be and to be well. And then empathy, listen, try to relate to others and find things about them that resonate with you. Common ground, if you will, and then be compassionate, respond to people's suffering, and have the desire to want to relieve that suffering when you are able. And then this phrase, try for acceptance and love whenever possible. Acceptance is a little bit of a tricky one. You have to kind of be careful what you accept, right? You certainly don't want to accept abuse. And you need to be true to yourself and your own values, of course. So assert yourself when necessary in order to stay safe, but accept people to the degree that you are able. But the wonderful thing is that you can be kind to people, you can respect people, you can empathize with people, and you can be compassionate towards everyone without accepting anyone, right? That might sound, almost oppositional in a way, but, we can treat everybody great without necessarily knowing that much about anyone. And finally, love. Try to love people. Loving others helps to make us happy, and looking for the good in others helps us to find the good. So keep on being loving. Do your best to love everybody all the time. And then finally, I will always say, be well. And that's, really what this show is about: wellness, living your best life, going out there and being your awesome self in the world, and sort of being the best you can be. And I always say every day is an opportunity to start again, right? To be your best self. So every day we get a clean slate and we get to go out there and do our best to just be our best selves. And so that pretty much does it for episode 1 of It Matters How We Treat One Another, the Social Psychology Podcast. So please subscribe to our channel if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe to our show if you're listening on a podcast platform so you are alerted when future episodes post. My plan for the show is, it might sound a little tricky, but it's I plan to post the first Tuesday after the first Friday of the month, and the third Friday of the month. I don't know if that makes sense. So basically, I'm going to record on the first and third Fridays of the month, and the podcast will post the following Tuesday. So there you go. And it's probably early to ask for your support, but it never hurts to put our store out there in the world. This is something that we started probably a year ago, associated with, again, Facebook and Instagram, and that is an Etsy store. It's It Matters Merch on Etsy. So please check out It Matters Merch, and I'll put a link in the description for you. And we have lots of cool stuff that relates to both really the whole platform, right? What is a growing platform of It Matters How We Treat One Another. So thanks so much for listening and or watching. And remember, treat everyone with kindness, respect, empathy, and compassion, and try for acceptance and love whenever possible. And be well. Much love to you all. Bye.